Hello, my name is Barbara Dyke and I am from Leander, Texas. Today I'm going to show you how to do a passap double hem. This will give you the layer look without all the bulk. And I like t-shirts a lot like that wears this. I'm going to go ahead and show you the back side. That is a very neat back side with not a whole lot of mess, so that you will have a good clean look on both sides. Okay, we're going to start with 40 needles on the front and the back. So I'm going to bring up 20 needles on both sides of the bed. So I've got 20 needles on my front bed, and I'm going to push this in the 12 o'clock position just for a minute so I can match up my needles point to point and get exactly the same amount of needles on the back bed. So see, I have point to point, putting it back into the 6 o'clock position on the racking handle. Okay, we now have all 40 needles set up and ready to go. We're going to set up our carriage. We have the contrasting yarn that we're going to use for our first part of our hem. We're going to put the row counter on 0. We want our front bed, our front lock, set up on 4.5 with N. We want the back bed set up at stitch size 2 and N. We got the black strippers in, and we're going to knit 1 row. Okay, now we're going to reset the locks. We're going to put the back bed on GX, and we're going to leave the front bed on N and 4.5. So we're going to knit 13 rows on the front bed only. We have completed our 13 rows, and we're now at row count 14. We're going to put the front bed on 5.5, and we're going to knit 1 row. Now that's going to give us a turning row. Now we're going to put the front bed back onto 4.5, and we're going to knit 15 rows to give us a total count of row count 30. Now I'm seeing on the back bed we're having a little bit trouble with our stitches staying in the needles. This is because we don't have any weights on it. This is giving us just a little bit of trouble, so you want to keep an eye on that. Okay, so I'm going to knit another 15 rows. We have just finished 30 rows, so we have completed our first part of our hem. So we're going to take the double-eyed bocking, and we're going to transfer, and for this we can put the machine up into the 12 o'clock position. That gives us an easier transfer over to the stitches. So we're going to transfer all these front bed stitches. Now today I'm using a total of 40 needles to do this, but when you do this for the hem of your shirt or the hem of your sleeve to get a layered look, you want to, of course, do the complete amount of stitches required for that item. This is just a sample to give you an idea of how to incorporate this into your own sweater. Okay, I have just completed with all my transfers. I still have my racking handle in the 12 o'clock position. So I'm going to bring all my needles back up and make sure I'm point to point. I got 20 and 20. Now I'm going to put it back in the 6 o'clock position, so I'm in the passap rule. Okay, I'm going to put my row counter on 0. I'm going to change to the main color of what my sweater would be. Check my tension. Now again, I'm going to have my settings on N, 2 on the back bed, 4.5 on the front bed, and I'm going to knit 1 row. And you want to make sure that all your contrast yarn knitted off. So I'm going to help it because that was a tight stitch. So it looks like I need to give it some help here. I could probably use my yellow tool and get a little bit better, making sure all these get knitted off. Quite a few of them didn't on this, it looks like in this case. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way of the picture. That stitch on the back bed is tight for a reason, because you want a nice tight finish. You don't want a large loop underneath. Okay, so here we go. Looks like we got everything pretty much popped off now onto the we got all pink stitches on the back bed. So we're going to leave it now that we've got our one row. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the back bed on GX, and we're just going to knit on the front bed. So we're going to do 8 rows. So we're going to do fewer rows than what we did with the main row. So we're going to now do 8 rows to give us a row count of 9. Excuse me, we have a little problem here. Let's get this problem. The thing about GX is if any of your needles are up just a little bit, the machine doesn't like to knit. So what I do sometimes, if I'm not using any pushers at all, and they're in the rail, not in rest, but in the rail, I'll use BX instead of GX, and that will give me an easier push through, as you saw just then. Okay? So we're going to knit to row count 9. And again, we're going to bump it up to 5.5, 1 full stitch up. This is our turning row. Then we're going to go back to 4.5, and we're going to knit 10 rows to row count 20. Okay, we have knitted to row count 20. Now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer all the back bed stitches to the front bed. Also, while we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set it at our main knitting. So our sweater would be knitted at 5.5 with this yarn, because we wanted our hem to be a little bit tighter so it wouldn't flare out. And we're going to put the rack and handle back up in the 12 o'clock position. I'm going to get my double-eyed hook, double-eyed needle, and I'm going to transfer all these stitches to the front bed. Now I'm coming at the end of getting everything transferred over. We will be doing single bed knitting from here on. So you want to make sure that all your needles in the back bed are down. So you got all your back needles down. The same color is the main yarn. So this would be either your sweater body or your sleeve. Now my rack and handle is still up in 12 o'clock. It doesn't matter. If you want to be in the habit, you can go ahead and put it down back into the 6 o'clock position just to keep that habit going. But since you're knitting single bed only, it really doesn't matter where your rack and handle is. But just to get into a good habit, go ahead and stick it down into the 6 o'clock position. So we're going to knit about, I'd say maybe 30 rows here, just to give. So I'm going to put my row counter on 0, and I'm going to knit 30 rows just to give you a base. Okay, here's 29, and we're going to 30. Now I'm going to go ahead and not break this off and leave a wedge, loose stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull me some yarn out. I'm going to wrap it around my end lever, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work these off the machine, and I'm going to use my needles to give me a loose cast off so I don't get too tight. Now if you're doing a sweater, you could do this off on waste yarn so that you could have live stitches to show your shoulder seam together, or if you wanted to. I go ahead and I don't do that. I go ahead and just cast off and then sew them together. We want to go around that needle, so that needle is holding our stitches. So we're going to let the needles continue to hold our stitches. Okay, we are coming off on the final one, so we pull it through, and what I like to do is I go under the lock, over the lock, and I pull it through. I break my yarn, and then I pull this last stitch completely out here. So I give it a little extra security to hold that last stitch. So there we go. There we go. So now we want to take this off the machine and see how well we did. Release it from over on the side. Okay, so here it is. I had a little problem, as you can see, with here where my tension kind of didn't do right. So we can fix that when we seam it together. And here's our turning row. Now we're going to steam it, and we'll show you how to steam it, okay? Okay, we're now going to steam this piece so you can see what it looks like. So first we're going to do is we're going to steam out the main part. So we're just going to give it steam. We're not touching it, but you can see how it rolls out. Now this is acrylic yarn. This is a discontinued yarn, but a lot of people might still have some of this. This is the Bramwell Dual Magic, and I just love that yarn, and I stocked up on it. So we got there's the main sweater. Now I'm going to turn it around so I can work a little bit easier. Now see, I'm going to take here and just steam it, and I'm just going to press the row where it changed. I don't want to take this, and I don't want to over steam it, but I do want my hem to lie flat, so just enough steam, and then just a finger press where my roll is, and that's all there is to that, to steaming it. Now you can use your imagination to finish this. This would look lovely. I'm going to stick it over here. I happen to be wearing a t-shirt right now with the 2-layer look. I've got a double hem, see? And I like this look quite a bit, so I do wear it. And you got this, so you can use your imagination, and this would look beautiful on a sweater. It'd look beautiful maybe on a skirt. It'll look beautiful on the sleeve of your sweater, to just give it just a little bit of a different look. So happy knitting.